3:47 a.m., August 15th, 2025. Indian Ocean, 240 nautical miles northeast of Mogadishu, Somalia. The cargo vessel MV Atlantic Pioneer, carrying what appeared to be routine commercial freight, sent out a desperate mayday call that would trigger the largest naval rescue operation in modern history. But this wasn't just another pirate hijacking. Hidden deep within the ship's secured cargo hold was 47 kilograms of weapons-grade uranium-235, enough to construct multiple nuclear devices capable of destroying entire cities. The Somali pirates who seized the vessel thought they had captured a simple merchant ship carrying electronics and pharmaceuticals. This was a fatal error. They had unknowingly triggered a direct threat to American national security and global stability. What they couldn't comprehend was that they had just declared war on the full might of the United States military machine. This is the story of how American naval power, SEAL Team 6, and the most advanced military technology on Earth converged to eliminate a threat that could have changed the balance of world power forever. The pirates believed they held all the cards. They were catastrophically wrong. Stay with us and discover how the force of American retribution descended upon the Indian Ocean like the wrath of God himself. Don't look away until you witness the complete annihilation of those who dared threaten global security. Subscribe and share your thoughts on this decisive demonstration of American military supremacy. The MV Atlantic Pioneer was no ordinary cargo vessel. Built in South Korean shipyards under a classified contract with the Department of Defense, the 190-meter freighter served as a covert transport for the most sensitive materials in the American nuclear arsenal. Her hull was reinforced with blast-resistant composite armor. Her communication systems were encrypted with military-grade quantum encryption, and her crew included 6 undercover Navy nuclear specialists disguised as merchant marines. The ship's manifest listed mundane cargo: industrial machinery bound for Mumbai, medical supplies for Bangladesh, computer equipment for Sri Lankan tech companies. But secured in a temperature-controlled compartment 3 decks below the waterline, protected by biometric locks and armed guards, was container X-7741. Inside that container, packed in specialized radiation-shielded cases, was enough enriched uranium to power a small city or incinerate one. This wasn't stolen material or black market contraband. This was a legitimate shipment of nuclear fuel produced at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory in Tennessee and bound for the Tarapur nuclear power plant in India as part of a classified agreement between the American and Indian governments. The uranium had been refined to 93.5% purity, making it among the most weapons-capable nuclear material on Earth. The Atlantic Pioneer's route through the Indian Ocean had been planned with obsessive attention to security. Naval intelligence had identified the safest corridor, avoiding known pirate hunting grounds and maintaining constant satellite surveillance. The ship was escorted at a discreet distance by the guided missile destroyer USS John Paul Jones, while overhead, MQ-4 Sea Triton surveillance drones monitored a 500-kilometer radius around the vessel. But even the most sophisticated security planning couldn't account for human treachery. At 11:23 p.m. on August 14th, Chief Engineer Robert Matthews, a 15-year veteran of the Merchant Marine with gambling debts exceeding $400,000, transmitted the Atlantic Pioneer's exact position, speed, and heading to a contact in Dubai, using the ship's satellite internet connection. Matthews had been recruited 6 months earlier by Hassan al-Rashid, a Somali-born arms dealer operating from luxury hotels in the United Arab Emirates. Al-Rashid promised Matthews $2 million for information about high-value cargo shipments, describing them as insurance fraud operations that would result in no one getting hurt. Matthews had no idea that his betrayal would deliver weapons-grade nuclear material into the hands of the most sophisticated pirate organization in the Horn of Africa. He thought he was helping steal consumer electronics, not potentially triggering World War III. The pirates who received Matthews' intelligence were not the desperate fishermen-turned-criminals portrayed in Hollywood movies. They were the Maritime Assault Division of the Harti Somali Maritime Group, a paramilitary organization that controlled pirate operations across 200,000 square kilometers of the Indian Ocean. led by Abdullahi the Shark Hassan, a former Somali Navy officer who had received military training from Soviet advisors in the 1980s. The group operated with the discipline and tactical sophistication of a professional military unit. Hassan commanded over 400 fighters, organized into specialized teams, boarding parties trained in close quarters combat, technical specialists capable of operating hijacked vessels, and negotiators who had extracted over $300 million in ransom payments from international shipping companies. Their equipment rivaled that of many national navies. Fast attack boats powered by triple outboard engines, satellite communication systems, night vision equipment, rocket-propelled grenades, and even shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missiles acquired from Libyan weapons depots during the chaos following Gaddafi's overthrow. Most dangerous of all was their intelligence network. Hassan had cultivated contacts in ports from Karachi to Durban, providing advance warning of high-value targets. Corrupt officials in maritime authorities provided shipping schedules, while sympathizers in international shipping companies leaked cargo manifests and security arrangements. When Hassan received word of the Atlantic Pioneer's valuable cargo, he assembled his most elite team. 24 fighters, armed with AK-47 assault rifles and RPG-7 grenade launchers, embarked in 4 high-speed boats from a secret base on the Somali coast. Their mission: seize the vessel, secure the cargo, and demand a ransom that would fund pirate operations for the next decade. Hassan's tactical plan was based on successful hijackings conducted over the previous 5 years. Approach the target vessel under cover of darkness, overwhelm the crew with superior firepower, and establish control of the bridge and engine room within minutes. International law and naval patrol schedules would provide at least 72 hours before any military response could reach the hijack site. But Hassan made the same fatal error as every enemy who had ever underestimated American resolve. He assumed that the United States would treat this as a criminal matter, subject to international law and diplomatic negotiation. He had no comprehension that he was about to face the full fury of American military power unleashed without restraint or mercy. The attack began at 3:47 a.m., just as the Atlantic Pioneer's crew was changing watch. 4 speedboats, invisible to radar due to their small size and low profile, approached from the vessel's blind spots, while the ship maintained course and speed, through calm seas, under a moonless sky. Hassan's lead boat carried 8 fighters armed with grappling hooks and assault rifles. The second boat, instead of demanding a ransom from the shipping company, Hassan contacted his handler in Tehran. For the past 3 years, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps had been funding Somali pirate operations in exchange for intelligence about Western military movements in the Indian Ocean. Now, they had an opportunity to acquire nuclear materials that could accelerate Iran's weapons program by decades. Hassan's satellite phone call at 4:23 a.m. was intercepted by a national security agency listening post in Diego Garcia, 1,200 kilometers to the south. Advanced algorithms analyzing the conversation's content immediately flagged references to uranium, nuclear, and Tehran, and triggered Priority Alpha alerts throughout the American intelligence community. Within 6 minutes of Hassan's call, the Situation Room in the White House was occupied by the President's National Security Team. Within 12 minutes, emergency conferences were underway with the Pentagon, CIA, and State Department. Within 18 minutes, the President himself was briefed on a threat that could potentially result in nuclear weapons falling into the hands of the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism. The decision to respond with overwhelming force was unanimous and immediate. This wasn't a law enforcement matter or a diplomatic crisis. This was a direct threat to American national security that demanded the full application of military power. The pirates had made a fatal error in judgment that would cost them everything. Operation Neptune's Fury was authorized at 4:47 a.m., exactly 1 hour after the initial hijacking. The code name reflected both the maritime nature of the threat and the divine retribution that was about to be unleashed upon those who had dared to threaten American interests. The operation would be commanded by Admiral Sarah Mitchell, a 28-year Navy veteran who had overseen special operations throughout the Middle East and Southeast Asia. From her flagship, the USS Gerald R. Ford, operating in the Arabian Sea, Mitchell had access to the most powerful naval force assembled since World War II. The carrier strike group included the Ford herself, with 75 combat aircraft ranging from FA-18EF Super Hornets to EA-18G Growler electronic warfare planes. The guided missile cruiser USS Bunker Hill provided air defense and long-range strike capabilities. 3 guided missile destroyers, USS John Paul Jones, USS McCampbell, and USS Pinckney, formed a protective screen while maintaining readiness for surface combat. But the most critical element of Neptune's fury would be carried out by the most elite warriors in the American military, SEAL Team 6, officially known as the Naval Special Warfare Development Group. These were the same operators who had eliminated Osama bin Laden, the same men who had rescued American hostages from terrorists around the world, the same warriors who represented the sharp edge of American power projection. 24 SEALs, divided into 3 8-man teams, would conduct the rescue operation. Alpha Team would assault the bridge and secure the crew. Bravo Team would neutralize pirates in the engine room and cargo holds. Charlie Team would locate and secure Container X-7741, ensuring that the nuclear materials remained under American control. Supporting the SEALS would be the most advanced military technology in the American arsenal, MH-60M. Black Hawk helicopters, modified for special operations with advanced avionics and defensive systems, would deliver the assault teams to the target. A C-130J Ghost Rider gunships would provide close air support with precision-guided munitions. MQ-9 Reaper drones would maintain constant surveillance and eliminate any pirates attempting to escape. Most important of all was the psychological warfare component of the operation. Naval intelligence had identified Hassan as the key decision-maker, whose elimination would cause the complete collapse of pirate command and control. His death would serve as a message to every criminal organization in the world: threaten American interests and face the consequences. The approach phase of Neptune's fury began at 6:30 a.m. as the carrier strike group altered course toward the hijacked vessel. The Ford's nuclear reactors pushed the massive ship to flank speed, her escort vessels struggling to maintain formation as they raced across the Indian Ocean at over 30 knots. Overhead, surveillance aircraft began mapping every detail of the hijacked vessel. E-2D, Advanced Hawkeye Airborne Early Warning Aircraft, provided continuous radar coverage of a 500-kilometer radius, ensuring that no hostile forces could approach the area without detection. P-8A, Poseidon Maritime Patrol aircraft, used advanced sensors to count the exact number of pirates aboard the Atlantic Pioneer and track their movements throughout the ship. Most sophisticated of all were the RQ-4 Global Hawk surveillance drones, operating from classified bases in the region. Flying at altitudes exceeding 18,000 meters, these unmanned aircraft could monitor the hijacked vessel with cameras powerful enough to read individual facial expressions and identify specific weapons carried by the pirates. The intelligence picture was transmitted in real time to the Pentagon, where analysts built a complete 3-dimensional model of the hijacked vessel, showing the location of every pirate, every crew member, and every piece of equipment aboard the ship. This information would be crucial for ensuring that the assault teams could eliminate the pirates while avoiding harm to the innocent hostages. But even as American military forces converged on the hijacked vessel, Hassan was implementing his own tactical plan. The former Somali Navy officer understood that his greatest advantage lay in the threat he posed to the hostages and the nuclear materials. Any rescue attempt would risk triggering explosions that could contaminate thousands of square kilometers of ocean with radioactive debris. Hassan's technical specialists had rigged improvised explosive devices throughout the ship, connected to dead man switches that would detonate if the pirates came under attack. Shaped charges were positioned next to Container X-7741, designed to breach the radiation shielding and scatter uranium across the Indian Ocean. Other explosives were placed in the engine room, where their detonation would sink the vessel and send the nuclear materials to the ocean floor. The message to American negotiators was clear: any attempt to retake the ship by force would result in an environmental disaster that would make the Chernobyl accident look insignificant by comparison. Hassan believed he held the perfect deterrent against American military intervention. This was his second fatal error. Hassan had spent his career fighting African warlords and corrupt government forces who would retreat rather than accept heavy casualties. He had no experience with American Special Operations Forces who were trained to accomplish their missions regardless of risk or cost. At 9:15 a.m., Admiral Mitchell received authorization to commence the assault phase of Neptune's Fury. The final approach would begin with electronic warfare designed to blind and confuse the pirates, followed by precision strikes to eliminate their heavy weapons, and culminating in a simultaneous assault by all three SEAL teams. The electronic attack began with the EA-18G Growlers launching from the Ford's flight deck. These specialized aircraft carried the most advanced jamming equipment in the world, capable of disrupting every form of electronic communication used by modern pirates. Within minutes of the Growlers reaching their operating positions, Hassan's satellite phones went silent. His GPS navigation systems provided false coordinates, and even his simple handheld radios filled with static. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. Pirates who had maintained confidence through their superior numbers and defensive positions suddenly found themselves isolated and unable to communicate with their teammates in other parts of the ship. The explosives they had rigged as deterrents became useless without the ability to coordinate their detonation. But the most sophisticated element of the electronic warfare attack was designed specifically to neutralize Hassan himself. Naval intelligence had identified his personal satellite phone through analysis of intercepted communications and targeted it with a focused electromagnetic pulse that would permanently disable the device while Hassan was using it. At 9:31 a.m., as Hassan attempted to contact his handlers in Tehran to report on the approaching American fleet, his phone received what appeared to be an incoming call. When he answered, a directed energy weapon aboard the USS Bunker Hill delivered a precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulse that not only destroyed the phone, but delivered a severe electric shock that left Hassan temporarily unconscious, and his right hand burned and useless. The loss of communication with Hassan created immediate chaos among the pirate ranks. Mid-level commanders, accustomed to receiving detailed instructions from their leader, found themselves unable to coordinate defensive measures or maintain discipline among fighters, who were beginning to panic as they realized the magnitude of the force approaching their position. This was exactly the psychological condition that SEAL Team 6 had been trained to exploit. At 9:45 a.m., as the electronic warfare attack reached its peak intensity, 3 MH-60M Black Hawk helicopters lifted off from the deck of the USS McCampbell and began their approach to the hijacked vessel. The helicopters flew at wave-top level to avoid detection by any radar systems the pirates might possess, their pilots using night vision goggles to navigate through the pre-dawn darkness. Each aircraft carried 8 SEALs equipped with the most advanced individual combat equipment in the American military arsenal. The SEALs wore OpsCore fast helmets integrated with night vision and thermal imaging systems that could identify human targets through solid walls. Their body armor was rated to stop rifle rounds and grenade fragments while maintaining the flexibility needed for close-quarters combat. Their primary weapons were specially modified HK-416 assault rifles fitted with suppressors and laser aiming systems. But their most important equipment was their training. Each SEAL had completed thousands of hours of practice in shipboarding operations, room clearing techniques, and hostage rescue procedures. They had studied three-dimensional models of the Atlantic Pioneer until they could navigate the vessel blindfolded. They knew the location of every door, every stairway, every potential hiding place that pirates might use. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Torres, the assault team leader, had personally participated in 17 hostage rescue operations during his 12-year career with SEAL Team 6. He had rescued American diplomats from terrorists in Somalia, freed oil workers from kidnappers in Nigeria, and eliminated pirates throughout the Indian Ocean. For Torres, this was just another day at the office. But even Torres understood that Neptune's Fury represented something different. The presence of nuclear materials elevated this operation beyond routine counter-piracy to a matter of global security. Failure was not an option. The SEALS would succeed, or they would die trying. The assault began at 9:52 a.m. as fast ropes dropped from the hovering helicopters onto the Atlantic Pioneer's deck. 24 black-clad figures slid down the ropes with practiced efficiency, their boots hitting the steel deck simultaneously as they immediately dispersed toward their assigned objectives. Alpha Team, led by Torres himself, moved toward the bridge, where intelligence reports indicated that Captain Morrison and most of the crew were being held hostage. Bravo Team, commanded by Chief Petty Officer James Wilson, descended into the ship's lower decks to clear the engine room and cargo holds. Charlie Team, under Lieutenant Sarah Chen, had the most critical mission, locating and securing container X-7741, before the pirates could detonate the explosives rigged around it. The first contact with enemy forces occurred at 9:53 a.m., when Alpha Team encountered two pirates manning a machine gun position on the ship's starboard side. The pirates, their night vision destroyed by electronic jamming and their communication with commanders severed, never saw the SEALs approaching through the darkness. Petty Officer First Class Michael Rodriguez eliminated both targets with suppressed rifle fire from a distance of 40 meters, his bullets striking with such precision that neither pirate had time to raise an alarm or fire their weapon. The bodies were quickly dragged out of sight as Alpha Team continued toward the bridge. But the pirates weren't completely helpless. Hassan had trained his men well, and even without communication or electronic support, they maintained defensive discipline. As Bravo Team descended into the ship's interior, they encountered a carefully prepared ambush at the entrance to the engine room. 4 pirates, positioned behind steel bulkheads and armed with AK-47 rifles and RPG-7 grenade launchers, opened fire on the SEALs as they entered the narrow passageway. The confined space amplified the sound of gunfire to deafening levels, while muzzle flashes strobed through the darkness like deadly lightning. Chief Wilson, a veteran of combat operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, immediately recognized the tactical situation and adapted his team's approach. Using hand signals to coordinate movement, he directed his SEALs to employ fragmentation grenades to clear the pirate positions without risking damage to critical ship systems. The grenades detonated with thunderous roars that echoed throughout the ship's steel hull, their fragments ricocheting off bulkheads and shredding everything in their path. When the smoke cleared, all 4 pirates were dead, their defensive position reduced to a slaughterhouse of torn metal and spilled blood. But the sound of combat had alerted every remaining pirate aboard the vessel. Hassan, despite his injured hand and destroyed communications, managed to rally his remaining fighters for a desperate last stand. If they couldn't escape with their prize, they would ensure that no one else could have it either. At 9:57 a.m., Hassan gave the order that he believed would checkmate the American rescue operation. Using a simple hand-held radio that had somehow escaped the electronic jamming, he instructed his demolitions expert to arm the explosives surrounding container X-7741. The detonation would occur automatically in 10 minutes unless Hassan personally entered a disarm code. This was Hassan's final card, his ultimate threat that he believed would force the Americans to negotiate. He had no comprehension that he was dealing with warriors who would accept the destruction of the entire ship rather than allow nuclear materials to fall into terrorist hands. Charlie Team, led by Lieutenant Chen, had been monitoring the pirates' movements through thermal imaging equipment that could track human body heat through the ship's steel structure. When they detected increased activity around container X-7741, Chen immediately realized that the pirates were preparing to destroy their prize rather than lose it. Chen's team had trained extensively for exactly this scenario, a nuclear material recovery operation complicated by the threat of deliberate destruction. Their response was swift, precise, and utterly ruthless. Using shaped charges of their own, the SEALs blasted through the ship's bulkheads to create direct access to the container storage area, bypassing the corridors where pirates might have positioned additional ambushes. The breach occurred at 10:01 a.m., just as Hassan's demolitions expert was making final preparations to arm the nuclear device. The shaped charge explosion hurled him across the cargo hold with such force that he died instantly from massive internal injuries. his hand still clutching the detonation device he would never have the chance to activate. But Charlie Team's mission was far from complete. Intelligence reports indicated that the pirates had rigged multiple explosive devices throughout the storage area, any one of which could scatter radioactive material across thousands of square kilometers of ocean. Each device had to be located, analyzed, and disarmed by Navy explosive ordnance disposal specialists operating under combat conditions. Petty Officer 2nd Class David Kim, a former nuclear technician who had cross-trained as an EOD specialist, began the delicate process of disarming improvised explosive devices while gunfire echoed through other parts of the ship. Using advanced diagnostic equipment that could analyze explosive compounds through molecular spectroscopy, Kim identified 12 separate devices connected to a central control system. The system was more sophisticated than typical pirate equipment, clearly designed by professionals with access to military-grade technology. Kim realized that he was looking at the work of Iranian Revolutionary Guard technical specialists, who had provided the pirates with expertise far beyond their normal capabilities. But sophistication was no match for American technical superiority. Kim's equipment included quantum computer processors capable of breaking encryption codes in real time, allowing him to access the Iranian control system and turn it against itself. At 10:07 a.m., he succeeded in reprogramming the detonation sequence to disarm all explosive devices simultaneously. Meanwhile, Alpha Team had reached the bridge where Captain Morrison and her crew were being held by Hassan's remaining fighters. The tactical situation was complex. 8 hostages, surrounded by 6 armed pirates, in a confined space, where any gunfire could result in casualties among the innocent victims. Lieutenant Commander Torres employed a psychological warfare technique that had proven effective in previous hostage situations. Using the ship's public address system, which the SEALS had accessed through their electronic warfare capabilities, Torres addressed the pirates directly in fluent Somali. "You are surrounded by the United States Navy," his voice echoed throughout the ship. "Your leader Hassan is dead. Your explosives have been disarmed. Your only chance of survival is immediate surrender. You have 60 seconds to drop your weapons and release the hostages." This was a calculated lie designed to destroy pirate morale and create confusion in their ranks. Hassan was not dead, merely unconscious and isolated from his men. But the pirates had no way to verify Torres's claims, and the psychological impact was devastating. 2 of the younger pirates, boys barely out of their teens who had been recruited from refugee camps in Kenya, immediately dropped their weapons and raised their hands in surrender. Their capitulation created a domino effect, as other pirates began to question whether continued resistance was worth dying for. But Hassan's most loyal lieutenant, a hardened veteran named Farah, who had participated in dozens of hijackings over the past decade, chose to make a final stand. Using Captain Morrison as a human shield, Farah positioned himself behind the ship's navigation console and prepared to fight to the death. "American soldiers!" he called out in broken English. "You want your woman, Captain? Come and take her." This was exactly the response that Torres had anticipated. SEAL snipers positioned throughout the ship had been tracking every pirate through thermal imaging and had maintained constant aim on all potential targets. When Farah exposed himself to make his threat, he provided the perfect opportunity for a precision shot that would eliminate him without endangering the hostage. Petty Officer 1st Class Jennifer Walsh, positioned in the ship's radio room with a clear line of sight to the bridge, fired a single .300 Winchester Magnum round from her custom sniper rifle. The bullet, traveling at over 900 meters per second, struck Farah in the center of his forehead and killed him instantly, his body collapsing without any involuntary muscle movement that might have endangered Captain Morrison. The death of Farah marked the effective end of pirate resistance aboard the Atlantic Pioneer. The remaining fighters, isolated and demoralized, surrendered en masse as SEAL teams secured every compartment of the vessel. By 10:15 a.m., less than 23 minutes after the first fast rope deployment, Operation Neptune's Fury had achieved complete success. All hostages were rescued without injury. Container X-7741 and its nuclear contents remained secure and undamaged. 22 pirates were dead, and the 2 survivors were in custody for transport to American military detention facilities. Hassan himself, unconscious and badly injured, would survive to face justice in American courts. But the most significant achievement of Neptune's Fury was the message it sent to every terrorist organization, every rogue state, and every criminal enterprise that might consider threatening American interests. The United States possessed not only the capability to project military power anywhere in the world, but the will to use that power without hesitation or restraint. The rescue operation had been conducted with such precision and overwhelming force that it left no doubt about the consequences of challenging American resolve. In less than half an hour, the full might of the United States military had reached across thousands of kilometers of ocean to eliminate a threat and rescue American interests with surgical precision. As news of the successful operation spread throughout intelligence communities worldwide, the psychological impact was immediate and profound. Iranian Revolutionary Guard commanders realized that their support for pirate operations had been exposed, and their technical specialists had been outmatched by American capabilities. Chinese military analysts studying reports of the operation concluded that American Special Operations Forces possessed capabilities that exceeded their own estimates by significant margins. Russian naval officers acknowledged that the speed and precision of the American response represented a level of military readiness that would be extremely difficult to counter in any potential conflict. Most important of all was the impact on international maritime security. Pirate organizations throughout the Indian Ocean and Gulf of Aden immediately ceased operations against vessels flying American flags or carrying American cargo. The demonstration of American power had created a deterrent effect that would protect shipping lanes for years to come. Admiral Mitchell's final report to the Pentagon was succinct. Mission accomplished. Threat eliminated. American interests secured. But those simple words represented something far more significant than the resolution of a single crisis. They represented proof that the United States remained the world's dominant military power, capable of projecting force anywhere on Earth to protect American lives and interests. The Atlantic Pioneer resumed her voyage to Mumbai under heavy naval escort, her precious cargo secure and her crew safe thanks to the courage and skill of American warriors who had risked everything to ensure the mission's success. Container X-7741 reached its destination on schedule, where Indian nuclear technicians would transform weapons-grade uranium into fuel for peaceful nuclear power generation. But the real victory of Operation Neptune's Fury wasn't measured in rescued hostages or recovered nuclear materials. It was measured in the renewed respect for American military power demonstrated by enemies and allies alike. The pirates had learned, at the cost of their lives, that threatening American interests was a fatal error in judgment. The Indian Ocean was once again safe for international commerce, protected by the knowledge that the United States Navy maintained constant vigilance over the world's most important shipping lanes. And somewhere in the Pentagon's classified archives, Operation Neptune's Fury took its place among the great victories that had shaped the modern world through the application of American military might. The silence that followed the operation spoke louder than any diplomatic protest or military threat. It was the silence of enemies who had learned to fear American power, allies who had renewed confidence in American protection, and pirates who would never again dare to challenge the might of the United States. If you found this account of American naval supremacy and special operations excellence compelling, don't forget to subscribe and join us as we continue documenting the operations that maintain global security. Share your thoughts on this decisive victory in the comments below.